Well, we kick off this morning right here on Solar Media on News in Views, taking a look at the Johannesburg CBD and talking about the state of the metro. Also, looking at the impact of businesses moving out of the Joburg CBD. We are talking now with the executive manager for social innovation at OUTA, the organization undoing tax abuse, Julius Kleinhans. Julius, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. You can see I've got my safety belt on, so let's hold on. It's just going to be a big show.
Well, definitely, definitely. Well, Julius, let's kick off and taking a look at the Joburg Metro. Now, it's been a talking point, and I know recently even more in the news as a result of the fire that had broken out at the building in Marshalltown. But it is clear that the state of the CBD is in a royal mess, a mess second to none.
Absolutely. I think it's quite evident, and it seems like it's been escalating. All of a sudden, over the last 2 months, things started exploding. And look, tongue in cheek, but the city is burning. I think it's quite devastating to see how things have been falling apart. But you know what? This hasn't happened overnight. This has been coming for quite some time. And I think businesses don't have a choice but to start going elsewhere. If you look at semigration, it's getting more expensive to stay in the city and it's becoming more unsafe. And, the sustainability of electricity and water supply and all these kind of things becomes a big risk factor for future economic growth. So not only protecting your asset value, but just to maintain your business. I've been speaking to businesses over the last 2 weeks and they've been weighing up, and some of them said, it's worth exposing of a building at a loss, but to ensure that you keep the integrity of your business in the medium to long term. So it's a sad reality, but it is reality.
Well, Julius, that the city is beset with multiple problems over the years. And as you mentioned, this has been long coming. It's not something that has come as a surprise to us. And with the recent incidents that have taken place, the gas explosion, the fire at Marshalltown, and also just generally looking at how the city has been managed, how the city has been run, we've seen instability in the metro. We've seen mayors come, we've seen mayors go. All of that has been playing out, and while the politicians and the officials responsible for the city have been playing their games, they've basically, taken their eye completely off the ball.
Yeah, no, they have. There's no form of accountability with these individuals. And one has to take a step back and look at why. I think the political structures over time has become, you know, involved in the business of local government to such an extent where they drive agendas. If you look at a municipality, it's supposed to be run like a business. Officials who are employed in a municipality are employees. They're supposed to fulfill their functions and duties by doing their work. Their work's clearly cut out in a job description. But whenever a mayor changes, the whole city comes to a standstill. Now, how can you run a budget or a department if there's a tendency to stop everything when there's political change? It shows you the influence of political powers within the city. And to be honest, you get what you vote for. So I think the only difference we'll see in the future of our municipalities in general is to vote differently and to start getting more organized as civil society and having oversight in our council meetings. We have to get involved in this business of local government to have oversight and to hold the individuals to account. Um, as we've mentioned earlier, this hasn't happened over time. And to think about it, every month your municipality must report to province. They have to report to Treasury on a quarterly basis with their financials and things like that. So it's not like national government and provincial government doesn't know what's going on. So if you follow the root causes of the problems, it's absolutely a political will issue and the lack of holding individuals to account to do their jobs. There's too much influence, and the only way it can change is by changing exactly those root causes of the problem.
Well, Julius, this is happening in South Africa's largest city, uh, proudly being called, and I don't know for the wisdom behind calling it a world-class African city, because it is definitely not world-class when we compare it to even some of the cities in South Africa. And all of this has actually been playing out in a city that has got a huge budget. It's got a massive budget, and the city of gold, as it was known once before. And to see it in a shambles, and what we've seen even is after the Marshalltown tragedy and the disaster, suddenly we've seen officials waking up, talking about hijacked buildings, talking about investigating all these buildings, all of that as a result of a tragedy. When something bad had really happened, suddenly everybody's waking up, and it's not that they didn't have knowledge of this in the past.
Absolutely, and they wake up by blaming others. They don't take responsibility for that. And as you mentioned, these things, you call it hijack buildings. Just the word hijack shows you that it's illegal. You cannot do these things. So the bylaws are clear, the legislation is clear, the JMPD is everywhere. Why is the law not enforced? And, let's talk to the sensitivity of people moving into hijack buildings. Why aren't the impoverished communities and the homeless not being accommodated? There's been billions of rands allocated to sufficient housing and infrastructure and things like that. What is happening to that? And I think that's where the civil society role of oversight needs to step in, and we need to start looking at what budgets are allocated, who's getting the projects, what are the deadline dates, and we need to start monitoring it ourselves. And also, I think, sadly, but it's true, it's reality, we have to start evaluating whether the funds that's allocated are reasonable. You cannot pay 10,000 rand for a bottle of water. I mean, it's that's corruption. So we need to start making it very uncomfortable for those in power, and drive change. I think also, with those individuals, not taking responsibility, one has to start also making their lives quite uncomfortable. We need to have proper call to actions for the leaders, that's supposed to manage our city well. And you've touched on it, a world class city. This is not a world class city. This place is falling apart. So we need to also call a spade a spade. But the positive side of it is, if we were to apply the correct and responsible pressure as civil society and business, I think, one could get to a point where government has no choice but to allow for business and civil society to partner with it and fix it, because this government doesn't have a plan how to fix it. I don't think they know how to. But if there's a will, I think we can all actually still turn things around before it's too late, because we're getting to a point where it's almost going to be too late. The inner city is not an attractive place for anyone to go to. And yeah, if we want to keep the integrity intact, we need to step up. The last thing I just wanted to say is, if you look at the plans of the municipality, of the metro in Johannesburg, uh, in the future, they are catering and planning for more people coming to the city that's gonna rely on aid. So property rates and tariffs and everything increases for those who pay, um, yet to cater for those who won't be able to. And I think the city needs to reevaluate itself and need to go almost into a zero-based budget approach, where it looks at its current budget, what is sustainable, try to reduce costs for business to actually be efficient. Because what they don't keep in mind is people are paying for fuel to run electricity and all these kind of things as well. So how can you stimulate the economy, to rather create more jobs and get more people productive, and create more ratepayers, instead of just squeezing the last bit out of the current ratepayers? Because, if you look at the statistics, in the Western Cape, and I'm not talking about people immigrating, 90% of all houses and businesses that's been bought over the last 2 years are Gautengers, people moving down there because things are working there, so they can actually protect their assets and do business. So I think they need to reevaluate. And the last thing, You cannot expect. You've mentioned the budget of the city. The billions of rands that the city is in its coffers. You cannot expect people with 5 years experience in management to go run a business that's got the same budget as a JSE listed company. So I think we need to, if we are true to a municipality that is functional, a world class city, then we need to ensure that we start putting in the leaders and the business acumen, well established professionals that can run the city well and provide us all with good services, so that we can create jobs ourselves, so that more people can benefit.
Well, Julius, also, with the businesses moving out, obviously it means a reduction in revenue for the city in itself by way of rates. And this is where the danger is. And there's just so much to
Yeah.
fix because, at the end of the day, ratepayers are taxpayers as well. Now, all of this the city is doing at its own peril. And it's actually shocking, when we speak about all the corruption, about the misuse of funds, about non usage of funds as well. All of this playing out, and now just today, this morning, I actually learned about hijacked buildings where there's collusion between unscrupulous lawyers and also the deeds office, where overnight building owners, property owners don't even know that the property is not in their name anymore. Now, this is a level of corruption that we're seeing playing out.
No, exactly. It's gangster's paradise here. So if you don't start seeing individuals being held responsible, you're not going to see a difference. No, it's absolutely getting out of hand. And again, it's the leaders that's in charge. That's got oversight on this. It's not like this is happening with people don't knowing what's going on. And there's a strong political dynamic in this movement that we are seeing. So yeah, I think there's some serious conversations to be had. I think some serious pushback from civil society that needs to occur. But I am confident that business has the appetite to jump in and help the government turn things around. And as residents, we need to have oversight and play our role. Um, just lastly on that point with the businesses, this is the kind of turmoil you find yourself in, where you can become creative. You've mentioned funds that's not spent. I spoke to the Auditor General last week with their whole delegation and Treasury. And for what reason does Treasury still take money away from a municipality that didn't spend it at the expense of the people? And maybe it is time for Treasury to start paying creditors such as Rand Water and Eskom, instead of pushing those grants into the municipality, to ensure that the money goes where it should, and actually serve the people. Because yes, legislation requires a municipality to act independently, but that's been the scapegoat. And I think it's time for proper reform and alternative solutions, creative solutions that need to come into play to make sure that we can all just push through, start turning things around, stimulate the economy so that we can grow and build again.
Well, definitely, and obviously there is a need, as you pointed out, there is a need for social activism because if the officials are not going to be doing their job, it's up to organizations like yourself, it's up to civil society to come in and get in on the act.
Absolutely. I think that's really what needs to happen now is we need to get involved with our local community structures and organizations. There's a couple of good movements at the moment, and Alta's involved in one as well. We've recently launched Joburg Can. It's the Joburg Community Action Network. What we're really trying to do is to facilitate the engagement amongst community organizations and residents associations all across from Lenasia to Diepsloot, Rivonia. If we can get these communities active and speaking to their neighbors and mobilizing around common causes, I think we're going to be a force to reckon with. So we should step out of our silos and start taking hands to take up our rights and demand it efficiently, but responsibly so. Um, and I think that's really the movement we require now. There's action for accountability in Lenasia side that's starting to build a good movement as well with the Ahmed Katrada Foundation. and to name a few. So I think my call to the communities are get involved in your local structures and demand your local structures to get involved in these kind of networks so that we can start taking hands and partnering, because I think that is really what's important. The politicians will start becoming very uncomfortable because there's no one that's keeping their feet to the fire, and they've been acting independently from residents. So I think that's what's needed, and hopefully that will change the future of local government.
Well, definitely, and also, you're talking of getting involved locally, but also at the same time making an impact nationally, especially with election year coming, and you've got the vote, so you have the power.
That is probably the biggest element of hope, I think, in South Africa that we currently have. The haves can move abroad. They can go to alternatives. The don't haves don't have much of a choice. And what we've seen in the past is that the ANC is the governing party. They are the majority party, and but they've become they won the last elections with, I think, only about 30 or 40% of eligible voters voted. So that could have swung in a very different direction. And I'm not saying it's the second party, the DA or the Action SA. If you look at a 60% eligible voting space, they can vote for any given party. Now, maybe we don't even know the name yet. But the fact is that a government can change next year if everyone exercises that right, that vote. Don't see it as a holiday that you just have off. I think I want to put it bluntly. If you don't vote next year, you don't have a reason to complain in the future. And if you vote for the current status quo, then that's what you need to accept, and your conscience needs to go with you on that. But next year, everyone must exercise their responsibility and vote, and I think that is probably one of the strongest elements that can pivot South Africa into the right direction. But if we don't do that, I'm afraid to say we're just going to continue going into this downward spiral.
Well, Julius, thank you very much, and I know you pulled up on the side actually to have a chat with us, and we do appreciate you taking time out this morning. All the best to you.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you, and I'll do it anytime. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. You too. Julius Clenon's joining us this morning, Executive Manager for Social Innovation at the organization organization Undoing Tax Abuse, with us this morning on the state of the Joburg city, and the impact of major businesses pulling out of the Joburg CBD. The time is just gone 8:27, and we're going to go for a break. We come back. We'll be talking Sudan, and we'll be joined by Aisha Keji.